Welcome to another edition of Living Legacies. I'm Tom Morrow, your host, and today we have Bob Pickrel, longtime resident of Oceanside, and for those of you who have banked with the Bank of America over the years, he'll be a familiar face. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom.
Now,
pleasure to be here.
As you said, told me that as things go, as far as old timers in Oceanside are concerned, you're kind of a relatively newcomer.
Very new, yes. 1978.
You came into town '78
Right.
with the Bank of America.
Right.
Now, where's home? Where were you born?
I was born in Galesburg, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Right there on the Mississippi River.
Well, a little bit to the east of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Closer to the Illinois, really, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right across the river from Iowa, and that.
Well, about 40 miles inland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And it was Galesburg, and it was Monmouth, and.
Right. Galesburg was a big rail center. All big railroads went through Galesburg, so.
If memory serves, Galesburg is where Knox College.
Knox College.
Yeah,
right.
my old football coach back in Iowa was a graduate of Knox College, and
good college.
And if I'd have been a little bit more prone to listen to advice, I would have probably graduated from there, because he got me a football scholarship at Knox College.
No kidding.
But I had to go join the Navy just to get out of there. I was through with school, which was a bad move on my part. But
well,
anyway,
you returned later.
Well, that was there were a lot of small colleges in that part of the Midwest. I think Monmouth's got a college too.
Monmouth's got one.
Yeah.
A lot of small colleges in Midwestern, particularly Illinois, I think. They had a lot of them in there. Yeah.
Now, for people who might not know exactly where this area is, it's about 40 miles south of the Davenport, Rock Island.
Right.
Those are the nearest big
50
cities.
miles north of Peoria,
Yeah.
about 110 miles west and a little bit south of Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of in north central area and Corn Belt, farm country.
What was growing up like back there? You're not that much older than I am, so I imagine we had a lot of things in common.
I was kind of raised on a farm. My grandparents were all farmers, and so I remember well the outhouses and the Sears catalog, and no electricity. We had the gas lamps. And,
you remember when the REA came through?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that my grandfather farmed with horses. I remember when he got his first tractor, and that was kind of interesting. I remember when we had the crank telephone. Everybody listened to
party line.
Yeah. Everybody knew what was going on. Well, that was how everybody kept acquainted with everybody, because you didn't have newspapers and everything so much in those days.
Yeah.
Particularly in the farm country.
Yeah.
So,
where'd you go to school?
went to school, Knoxville High School. Went to school in the Knoxville school system, first grade through high school.
Knoxville.
Which is about 3 miles east of Galesburg.
Is that where Knox College gets its name?
No, it was the old county seat. Knoxville was.
Oh, is it?
Knox County, Knox College,
Oh,
Knoxville was a county seat.
Okay.
So I went to school there. Had the pleasure of starting in the first grade and graduating from high school, all in the same place. So same little town, about 2,600 people. When my family left in '48, it was 2,596.
Now, have you been back there recently?
I've gone back for class reunions quite often.
How big is it now?
It's about 2,900.
Well, it's still about the same size.
It hasn't changed much. In fact, pretty much the same storefronts and everything.
Well, I'm sure your hometown was like mine. They said every town, the population pretty much stayed the same, because every time a new baby was born, somebody left town.
Right, or died.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to City College, and Pasadena City College in Pasadena. We moved to California. And then when I went with the bank in 1950, then I went to several different schools with the bank.
Well, we've got some pictures here that we want to show the folks, and you've got.
You can show some with my hair.
This is one that you have with hair.
Yeah.
And this is what age are you here?
Gosh, I don't know. I was probably.
Looks like about 10, 11?
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah. 10, 11, I really don't know. I'm guessing about
now
that.
When did you go in the Army?
In January '51.
Were you a volunteer, or were
I was drafted.
You were one of Uncle Sam's GIs?
Uncle Sam came and said, "Welcome, friend."
So for, you know, for the younger viewers out there, I know the term GI has become very popular in America, but a lot of people don't know what it means.
Government issue.
Government issue.
That's right.
That's what.
That's one thing they give you when you got in. They give you your clothes.
Yeah, and the government has issued you to the army.
That's right. That was the other part of it.
Now, while you were in Korea, we've got this next picture here. You are seen being awarded the Silver Star.
Right.
Now that's a pretty high honor. What did you do to get that?
Well, you know, those kinds of things are hard to talk about. I think that I was in the medics. You know, they made me a medic when I got to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 10 days of training, by the way. But I was a full-fledged medic. And so as a medic, and in Korea you were a medic and a rifleman, and so you carried both. And then when someone was wounded, you stopped and helped them. And so this particular day, there was several of us that got cut off, and we had some wounded men, and we managed to get them back and so forth. And there were some others that got awarded the same day. So there's a lot of heroes in war conditions that are never given a medal, and some people get them, and you know, it's sometimes hard to know who and why.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's something that your children and grandchildren can be very proud of.
Well, you know, you're proud of it because it came from our country, but you also know there's a lot of others that probably deserve the same thing.
That's that attitude, I think, prevails pretty much through anybody that's ever gotten that kind of an honor.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I think most of them feel that way.
Now, when did you go to work for the bank?
1950.
And that was
June of 50, yeah.
And it was interrupted by the Korean War?
Yes, so 7 months later I was drafted, and I'd had my 6 months with the bank, so I had a military leave while I was gone. Mm-hmm. So I was with the bank. They used to remind me that I was still bank property too.
So when you got back out of the service, you had a job.
Right.
And when you started, what, as a cashier? Or
started as a teller.
Teller?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I was a teller, and it was interesting. When I first started with the bank, I was a teller, and it was all men in the bank, except for the bookkeepers and a couple secretaries. When I got back 2 years later, half the teller line was women too. So it was kind of interesting, that 2 years with a big change. So I think a change for the good too, because I think some of the women were better people persons than some of the men were.
I know, no comment on that one. Now, how did you get to San Diego County?
Well, it was kind of roundabout. You know, I spent the first 15 years of my career in the San Gabriel Valley, Monrovia, Pasadena, Covina area. Little time in Los Angeles. And then I was transferred to San Diego in '69, and then I spent 10 years down there. And I was in several branches. I was a regional administrator for 7 years. And then I came to Oceanside then in '78. And I've been the rest. Of course, I retired in '90, so I have.
But now, when you first got here, were you a manager?
Well, I was vice president manager of the 3 offices here in town. At that time, we had 3 offices in Oceanside. And then, you know, with the bank progressed and did some new things, and I was an area manager, so I had several branches in the North County then at one period of time. And so it was kind of an exciting time. We were growing, things were growing.
I think this next picture we have is you receiving the...
Well, that was one of my first, I think, which one is that one? I think that was
you're receiving the keys to the...
That was my first manager assignment in Rosemead, California.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was back when you still had hair.
Well, I still had little.
And that was
that was about 67 or 68.
Okay, so that was before.
Yeah,
that was before Oceanside. Now
right.
this picture, this is the old bank branch at the corner of
Ditmar and Mission.
Mission, yeah.
Right.
That for people who might be having a tough time picturing that's standing right in front of the Hatter Building.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Cattywampus across.
It's now a parking lot, as you can see.
Yeah.
I think in the other picture there's a new branch being built.
Yeah, and then the next picture is the new branch being built. Yeah, demolition of the old branch and.
Right.
So now tell me about this King for a Day. What was that? And that was the 60th anniversary of the.
That was kind of interesting. That. you know, we were trying to think of something for an anniversary for our bank, you know, and I don't know, we hadn't really come up with anything. And the next thing I know, why the staff had put all this together. They managed to get me out of the branch. I think I was on base with General Bob. I can't remember his name right now. I should remember it too. But anyway, he and John Steiger and Elm Glazier and several others, we went out there supposedly to see their new computer system, which was just opening up, and so we had lunch out there. And I noticed that they kept stumbling over themselves, getting in and out of the car. I had trouble. And then all of a sudden we were in a hurry to get back, and I couldn't quite figure this out. I drove in the parking lot.
So this was a big surprise.
It was. I drove in the parking lot. There was police cars over there with their lights going, and I thought, my God, we've been held up. And I saw my poor little secretary was there, and she looked like the world had fallen in, and I thought, my gosh, somebody had been hurt. And I walk in, and here's this hurrah, and they had a song, and they had a parade for me, and they had about 300 people or so in there that they entertained and managed to entertain for the next 2 hours and fed them all and everything. It was quite a neat deal. Very surprising. They crowned me and put a dumb crown on my head, and I was perspiring all over the place. But it was kind of exciting.
Now you were in Oceanside at a time when there was a lot of activity. The harbor had just been built, and
right.
You mentioned a couple of the mover and shakers, Elm Glazier and John Steiger, and,
right.
and who were some of the other people you worked with down through the years at projects?
I think, on projects, of course, Fred Swearington, I think, was the president of was the director of our Chamber of Commerce at that time. I think the mayor, of course, was Larry Bagley most of the time that I was here.
Uh-huh.
And there was Bob Schaefer, and of course Harold Carpenter, and Gordon Tate, and Harold Moore. I think of all these people that we were in the boys club together, and we were in the chamber together, and it was great fun. A lot of things happened during that period of time.
Well, I know John Steiger's told me over the years that if something needed to be done, they didn't necessarily go to the city and ask for a handout. They just rolled up their sleeves and went and did it.
Yeah. Most of these people knew where to get things done, and who to go to get the expertise. So it was a good time, and they had a lot of things going. John had that. Greater San Norway Valley Planning Council that, kind of kept our area, North County, together. And I think they came up back in the mid '80s with 2000. What'd they call it? Anyway, it was we were realizing that there was a lot of old guys doing things, but we needed to have some younger people involved too. Mm-hmm. So with the help of Harold Carpenter and some of the young guys, they got started reinstituted the old Junior Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And out of that then came a lot of these young guys that are now deeply involved and are the people you go to for help today.
Sure.
So it's kind of neat.
Kind of passed the torch, so to speak.
Well, really did, and they've done a great job in coming in and picking up that torch and carrying it forward. So
now you retired in what year?
1990, December 1990.
And that was how many years with the bank?
40 and a half.
It was time?
It was time, yeah. Things were changing. I think when they did away with our lending authorities and decided to do that in heaven somewhere, I think that's when it lost my taste.
Yeah, I was going to say the big difference between banking today and banking in those days. I mean, banking today, as far as the big corporations are concerned, you did have a lot of authority locally. If you knew Joe Blow coming in the street and you knew him to be a good risk, you could make him alone.
Yeah, we did everything.
Today it's got to go up to Wazi land.
Somewhere, yeah. But in those days, we actually did everything in the branches. And in fact, when we moved into that new office, we had almost right around 90 people mm-hmm. on the staff, in which we had a lot of tellers, but we had a lot of lending officers too. And we handled a great deal of the auto dealers out here, did their banking. So we did auto loans and home loans and business loans.
But that was pretty much the same with all the banks, right?
Yeah, they did everything.
Now your small banks are about the only ones where you can talk to somebody that you know is going to be making your decision.
That's right. So it's really changed. And I think it's not as much fun as it used to be, in my opinion, because I think that was the fun of it, because you could actually make things happen, you know.
You could see things grow from
Yeah, you
from
could
money
see
that
companies grow, and you could see them become productive, and you know, starting from scratch
Sure.
and become something. And it was fun. It was a great deal of fun. It was a big challenge. It was a lot of work. Spent a lot of hours, but you could see the results. So it was fun, you know.
Well, you retired supposedly in 1990, but you
Yeah.
kept pretty busy.
Well,
Tell me some of the things you've been involved in since you retired.
I'm still on the hospital foundation board, which I've been for over 20 years, I guess. I'm still involved. Well, I've been involved with our cultural arts group and the museum up here. I've been involved with that from the start. Still involved with my church, the Presbyterian Church.
Tell me about because it's always intrigued me that of all the things that I heard about Oceanside before I got here, and of course before I really got to know what the town was really like. You know, Oceanside, you would have thought would have been the last place that you would ever find an Oceanside Museum of Art.
Yeah, well.
And it's turned out to be one of the real crown jewels of the city.
It really has.
But that didn't come about easily.
No, you know, in fact, back in the 80s, Larry Bagley, I think, enlisted a few people to get together and form a cultural arts group. And so we still have Oceanside Cultural Arts Foundation. And that was the start. And out of that cultural arts came Day of Art, was the first big thing. Mm-hmm. And by putting this on, they proved that if you had something downtown, if you build something, people will come. And so the Day of Art drew that first year, I don't know, 8,000 or 9,000 people, and they came down to see this, which has been an annual thing ever since. But then as a result of the culture of the Day of Art, then the produce market started on Thursdays downtown, and that has grown and become a regular thing. But once that happened, then they began talking about the museum. And of course, Bob and Estelle Gleason were very generous and donated the first large amount of money that really helped us focus on getting the job done. And so now we've got that beautiful museum over there that's very active, but unfortunately, we have to close down. About every 6 weeks, we have to close down for a couple of weeks in order to get ready for the next show, and so we're not open all the time. And so we are in the process of putting together we want to build 2 more galleries, one a permanent gallery with permanent art, and the other another flowing gallery that would be like we have today, so that we would always have 2 galleries and sometimes 3 open. So we're in the process of putting together a fundraiser to add that additional, which will triple the size of what we have now, a little more than triple it.
Now, are they still planning on maybe taking some of the old fire station?
When the city vacates the fire department, or the fire station there, then we would like to assume that that's part of the old Gill, the architect Gill. So that's still a Gill architectural building, and it's a historical site. So we want to reconvert that, and we would put in there an auditorium, and we would have our administration offices and a kitchen, which they already have a nice kitchen in there. Mm-hmm. And then we would have the rest of our museum for just museum and public usage. So it'd really be, we would have a courtyard in the front, sliding glass doors, so we could have our dinner dances and stuff, indoor, outdoor type thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty nice plan that I think that we'll put together.
I know that this coming weekend we have the Black and White Ball, the annual OMA benefit. How much does an event like that really contribute to the
a lot. And every
operation?
Year it's growing every year, so that it contributes more and more. And you know, the secret to those things are to get companies and firms to come in and be sponsors. Mm-hmm. And so that the money you take in from the tickets and all this is actually profit and stays in the till. Mm-hmm. And so we have more and more sponsors every year, and we're working to get more. And but anyway, it's become very good, and it becomes very much a part of our annual budget. Mm-hmm. We have that, the Mardi Gras, and we have a kind of a Western night. Those are our 3 big money raisers, and then we have a lot of trips that we take to different museums and to different points in the world where people like to go artistically.
Well, this is also a real community venue that almost anybody can get involved with. Even if they don't like art, they might want to go on one of the trips
That's
I know that you've taken several trips to the Getty Museum up in
Los Angeles Museum of Art. We've gone up to the Laguna Art Festival, down to San Diego. We have a trip, 3-day trip planned.
And I understand you have a trip planned to Santa Fe, Taos.
Right, 3-day trip over there to visit all those museums and all. Our director, Skip Paul, was over there for a while, so he knows all those museums over there very well, and so he will be kind of like a tour guide.
Well, I know a lot of shall we say, senior residents, seasoned residents. They like to travel, and that's a good opportunity to get a little culture and see some things that you might not normally see, and still it does make a few dollars for the museum.
It does, yeah. We have We have a trip planned for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
We have one planned for back in New York. We have several trips planned. There's one down in Mexico. So they have several trips planned for next year. So anybody that's interested, why they should contact us and find out about them, because they'll be interesting.
Now, your wife Darlene and you have how many kids?
We've been married 50 years. It's our 50th anniversary year.
Oh,
and we
great.
have 2 daughters, Sherry and Kathy, both married.
Are they both in the area?
Well, one lives in Lakeside, Sherry, and my younger daughter, Kathy, lives in Fallbrook with our 3 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's kind of neat to have them close by.
Now, what's next on your plate? You keep pretty busy with just the Museum of Art and the Tri-City Hospital.
Yeah, we're working our biggest fundraiser right now at the hospital. At least we're working on the cardiac rehab, but I think also we want to put a children's hospital up here in the North County that'll be available for dysfunctional problems and those types of things that we don't have available up here. You have to go clear to San Diego for it. So last year we kicked off our money raiser for that, was the first Mardi Gras, and any of you that went know that that's a lot of fun, and we're going to have another one this year, but that money is designated to go towards that hospital. So,
well, for some people at home that might think that we're talking about a lot of current stuff and stuff that might not have anything to do with your life, this is a perfect example of how things get done. And 20, 30, 40 years from now, people can look at this tape and say, oh, that's how that happened. And this is the way things get started. And I think it is important that people get different aspects from different leaders in the community, and you certainly have been one over the years, and 25 minutes are up.
They are.
It goes, over. And you didn't think we'd have enough to talk about.
It's been a joy, Tom. I hope it appears well.
My guest has been Bob Pickrel, retired manager and vice president of the Bank of America here in Oceanside, and a friend to many people and a civic leader to the community. I'm Tom Morrow, and join us again next time on Living Legacies.
Thanks, Tom.